you said you constantly need to be burning your boats. Again, this right here, like right now, like we do real estate full time. We could be sitting here right now on a laptop trying to find the next best deal to flip or the next apartment complex to buy, right?
That's
But
right.
we're not, right? And so we are this episode right here, we are physically burning our own boats because we're not out looking for that next deal because maybe there's a bigger path for us in our own lives and our company together. And that's exciting that we are living proof right now that we're burning our own boats just by being here recording this episode. So tell us a little bit about maybe the biggest moment where you burned your boats and what led you to come to this table right now.
Okay, that was really good. You're talking about the points of leverage, but to answer your question, I have an interesting thought experiment that I enjoy doing with people, and it goes a little bit like this: like if I put your brain right now, in your case, you're
40. Yep.
40 years of age. I'm 52. If I put my 52-year-old brain in my 22-year-old body, with everything I know, every single thing I know, every decision I ever made, everywhere I ever went, everything I know. And I said, could you get yourself back to this seat at this time, recording this podcast with you in this environment right now? Could I make my way back
Right.
to here?
Yeah.
And it's a very interesting
It
thought
is.
experiment. It's like I have all the information,
Right.
but this is where the luck comes into it, right? There is an element of I walked into that, meetup one night and I met Brian, and Brian introduced me to
Right.
Derek and so on and so forth, and that's how I met you.
Right.
Or I walked into a bar one night and I met my future wife, or I walked to
Yeah.
there's a number of scenarios that you would have to be there right there at that
Right.
moment with the people that you were with to walk into that environment that you were in. And so I think that that's really interesting that there is an element of luck.
You didn't meet Brian at that networking event if you were sitting at home
That's
watching Netflix. So I do know, which goes back to the harder you work, the luckier you get, right? You may have went to that network and did meet Brian, the networking event, and you met no one and you just went home. But did you meet Brian? It's because you took the action,
That's right.
because you stepped outside of maybe you didn't know anyone at that networking. You walk in there, you get your wristband, and you know no one. And we all have been there. It's super awkward. It's like going to that high school dance when you first walk in and everyone's standing there in their corner with who they know, and maybe you don't know anyone. But forcing yourself to get out of that your comfort level, meet Brian, who then introduced you to that person, and 5 years later you can trace it all the way back to that one networking event. No one's ever said that when they sat at home and watched Netflix.
No, that's exactly right. They've seen that show. In fact, just as you're saying that right now, it's like recording this podcast. This is our very first podcast. I've recorded podcasts with a lot of other people. I've been on other people's podcasts, but recording this podcast right now is one of those moments. Like
Yeah.
as you say, we could be at home buying deals
Right.
now that are absolutely guaranteed to make us money. And here we are.
A lot more
recording
money.
a lot more money
Today, it will.
than this podcast is going to be. But we don't know where this podcast is going to go.
Right.
We don't know the cool, amazing people that we're going to meet.
Yep.
We don't, we're going to talk a little bit later on in this podcast today about what it is that we're trying to create.